Hey, what's up YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. This is Everyday People with Patt. Thank you so much for tuning back in. This is the channel where we talk about money, we talk about finances, we talk about budgeting, we talk about ways to overcome debt, we talk about music, and everything else in between. So the podcast is coming soon. Make sure you guys are checking out for that. So today we'll talk about budgeting and the 3 ways that you're hurting your budget. So budgeting allows us to plan for expenses, save for the future, and achieve financial goals. But there could be some things that you're doing and that I've seen a lot of people do to throw you off track. So today, we're going to talk about it so I can get you back on track. Remember, there can be room for anything. There just can't be room for everything. Okay, so first way you're hurting your budget, overspending. Overspending can lead to a really bad cycle of getting into debt. So when we consistently spend more than we earn, we rely on credit cards, loans to float us month to month, get us by. While it may seem convenient at the time, the interest rates on these credit cards, the fees, they just pile up, and it ends up dropping us. And then we end up just getting caught up in the cycle of not being able to make the payments or pay the minimum payments. And then by paying the minimum payment, it's going to take us forever to actually pay off the debt itself. Also, overspending prevents us from achieving our long-term financial goals. So whether it's saving for a down payment on a house, planning for retirement, or even starting a business, our dreams require money. It requires financial stability. Every dollar spent on frivolous purchases is possibly a missed opportunity to invest in our future and build a legacy and build the life that we desire. Okay, so now we talked about overspending. Now let's talk about a few ways to overcome this. Okay, so one way is you're going to create a realistic budget for yourself or yourself and your family, and you're going to stick to it. So you're going to track your income and your expenses. It helps to categorize your spending and identify areas where you can cut back. Okay, by having a clear picture of your finances, you're going to be able to make more informed decisions and really just prioritize your needs over your wants. So another way to combat overspending is you're going to practice mindful spending. So before you make any purchase, you ask yourself, this is aligned with my financial goals? Is this truly necessary? And try to give yourself a cooling off period to avoid impulse buying. Remember, delayed gratification can always lead to greater returns in the long run. Another way you can use to combat overspending is build an emergency fund. Remember, life is unpredictable, and having a safety net can help you prevent from going into debt during unexpected situations. So you want to start small and set aside a portion of your income regularly so you have at least 3 to 6 months worth of expenses saved. So you're going to go through and you're going to see what do your monthly expenses cost. And it's going to be everything: mortgage, rent, utilities, groceries, gas, everything. You're going to go through and calculate how much everything costs for the month. You're going to either multiply that times 3 or times 6. I usually lean closer to the 6 months of emergency funds. You just never know what's going to happen. A lot of these times, these things are unexpected, and you never know if you're going to need 6 months of emergency funds in cash just in case something happens, just in case there's a rainy day the last 6 months, just in case you lose your job. Anything can happen, so you want to be prepared, and there's nothing wrong with having a longer duration of emergency funds just to give yourself an extra padding. Now, the next way you could be hurting your budget, and this happens to a lot of people, is underestimating your expenses. So typically, when we underestimate how much we spend, we usually set aside less money for essential items like groceries, bills, transportation. So this forces us to dip into our savings or rely on credit cards. Underestimating your expenses also hurts your financial goals and really mess up our budget and financial plans if we're not accounting for them. So now let's talk about a few ways to avoid some of these common pitfalls and make sure our budget stays intact. So first, you can keep a detailed record of your spending. So take the time to track every single expense, no matter how big or how small. This will give you a clear picture of what you actually spend, what your spending habits look like. You're going to be able to identify those areas where you have been underestimating those expenses. Also, practice being realistic when setting your budget. So instead of aiming for some unrealistic low number, err on the side of caution. Give yourself some breathing room by overestimating your expenses slightly. It's better to have a surplus of funds than constantly falling short. Also, make sure that you're constantly reviewing and adjusting your budget regularly as needed. As life changes, so do our financial needs, so take the time to reassess your budget periodically, accounting for any new expenses or changes in your income. This is going to help you stay on top of your finances and avoid any underestimating in the long run. Okay, so the last one we're going to talk about today, one of the last ways that you are hurting your budget is not including irregular spending. So irregular spending can blindside us. We often focus on fixed monthly expenses like rent, utilities, groceries, but what about those occasional expenses that pop up unexpectedly? Whether it's birthday gift, car maintenance is a big one, holiday expenses. These irregular costs can catch us off guard and derail our budgeting sometimes. Secondly, not accounting for irregular spending does lead to overspending and debt. So when we don't allocate funds for those occasional expenses, we end up dipping into our savings or relying on credit cards to cover those costs, and then the cycle continues. This is not only strain on our finances, but this can also put us in a cycle of constantly accumulating debt. Neglecting irregular expenses can definitely throw off our long-term plans. So let's talk about a few ways to overcome this. First, we can identify and track these irregular expenses. You want to take a close look at your past spending patterns and make a list of those occasional costs that tend to rise throughout the year. This could include things like holidays, special events, or sometimes even annual subscriptions. You can estimate the average monthly cost of these irregular expenses, take the total amount spent on these items in a year, divide it by 12, and you'll get an average. This is going to help you allocate a specific amount each month toward these irregular costs. So another thing you can do is you can set up a separate savings or checking account or envelope that's set aside just for these irregular expenses. So you want to be able to set up that account or an envelope. You want to have a system that's going to be able to hold those funds that you allocate for these occasional costs. By keeping the money separate, you'll be able to see exactly how much you have available. So that way you avoid dipping into your regular budget, your savings, you avoid credit cards, and that way you can keep yourself out of that cycle. So there you have it. We talked about 3 ways you're hurting your budget and also ways to fix it and get back on track. If you found this video helpful, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more content. Don't forget to leave any questions or suggestions in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.